When life and business is chaotic, it is hard to see the beauty that comes from it. But I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. I am your host, Ashley Stone, and I am your chaos coordinator. I believe there's always a message in the mess we can experience in our personal lives and in business. So join me on the journey of running multiple businesses, self-carrying it up, and designing a life for my family. This won't be just my story. It will be the many stories of remarkable women that have inspired me and will inspire you to discover the beauty behind the chaos. Hey beauties, my name is Ashley Stone and I am your host of Beauty Behind Chaos, where we unpack the chaos, we find the silver lining on the other side, and discuss all the things in between. And today I'm here with a guest, Miss Cassie McQuitty. Hey girl.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Do you want to formally introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Cassie McQuitty. I am the CEO of Christ Haven for Children, a children's home here in Keller, Texas. It's actually been in the community for 68 years, which is pretty crazy.
That is so wild.
Yeah.
So this is, okay, for all transparency, this is our first time doing video and audio at the same time. So
it's be amazing.
I'm a little disheveled, and at the same time, I'm like, I don't know where to look, but we're here. So I'm so excited about this dynamic. So we're going to get all kinds of coverage to share this podcast and what we're going to talk about. But let's dive into Christ Haven, because Christ Haven is such a unique organization and just so impressive. So, like, what is Christ Haven?
So Christ Haven is a children's home here in Keller, but when I say the word children's home, people automatically have this like image in their head of what it is, and that's the exact opposite of what Christ Haven looks like. When you come to our campus, we look like a neighborhood of homes. We operate like a neighborhood of homes. That's intentional. Our heart for the kids that live on our campus is family. So when you come there, that's what you feel. Our houses look like yours does, right?
Yeah.
Like bustling, running kids back and forth, homework, football, band, whatever. That's what it is. But kids that live in our homes were placed there voluntarily by a caregiver, which typically means for whatever reason their family can't provide for them. They've been abused, abandoned, neglected, and they come to live with us for as long as they need us. And I think that's what I love most about Christ Haven is we can stand in the gap for families for however long that season looks like. And sometimes that looks like 6 months. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that looks like 16 years.
Wow.
But whatever it is, we at Christ Haven get to be family and community. And it's just a huge blessing to get to know these kids and their families and just see so much talent and heart, and they're just awesome kids, and so serving them is amazing.
I will say, like, I've toured the facility, and not even the facility, like, it's like a mini town.
Yeah,
like
it is.
It literally is. You have like your neighborhood of the houses. There's even a church.
Yes.
And then you have horses. You have animals. Like, there's a farm. Do the kids get to participate in that?
Yeah, so pretty cool things about Christ Haven is everything that you see on our property is typically a partnership with someone else in the community that's mutually beneficial. So, for example, the horses on our campus is this awesome place called Pocket Ranch, and she does private. I love that. Yeah, they're awesome. That's awesome. Candace out there does private lessons for kids in the community, and then she also offers them to our kids. And I'll be honest, when she came, she's like, "Oh, I'll honor. We'll do free horseback riding lessons," and I'm like, okay, we'll see who takes it up on that. Like, more than half our kids did. Oh, and to get half of our kids to agree on any one activity, I mean, think about your house, that's hard, right? And they were all like, I'll ride horses, I want to do this.
And you have a large age range.
We do, yeah. So that's been super fun, and she's actually offering it to our staff now too.
That's amazing.
Yes, because horseback riding is therapeutic.
I was going to say, it's therapeutic, and I'm sure with the kids that you guys have, that's a great, like, outlet.
It is.
Something that they wouldn't have normally had access to.
That's right. And you laugh.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody's great at it until you've done it for a while, right? So we're all on a level playing field of learning this together. That's super fun.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then, so speaking of that, I want to actually, I have an episode in my head that, like, I keep hearing this word of just, like, collaboration and community.
and community over competition and all of these things when I think about just business and just how to show up and the things that you do. And those are like my main like kind of pillars. And so you guys epitomize that with what you do. So you rely on collaborations.
Absolutely.
You rely on the community to come together.
Yeah.
So you not only work with them, but then who else? What other organizations do you typically work with?
So we have a ton of organizations, actually, even that share space with us on campus, which is really unique. So my background, I came from United Way, and if anybody knows about United Way, the whole premise of that is nonprofits collaborating together to make community better.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have to be an expert at everything, right? Like, be good at what you're good at.
100%.
Right? Bring the people around you that are good at what they're good at and let them do that. And, you know, I think about that when I build my team. I think about that when I surround myself with my people, my tribe. And we definitely do that at Christ Haven. So we have an organization out there called TAG, which is an aquaponic growth organization. Literally, he uses our property as a data research training, and then he goes and builds these aquaponic farms on orphanages in third world countries.
Wow.
So we get to be the place where he practices and learns, and then our kids get to help him in that space. We have one that's worked for him for a couple of years. We get the produce, which is super cool, but our kids have like learned what this looks like. And I'd never seen an aquaponic farm before, and we get to do that. Teen Life is an incredible organization in the community that goes into the public school system and offers support groups for at-risk teens.
Okay.
It's an 8-week support group where it's just a safe space for kids to come and talk about anxiety, depression, home life, suicidal ideation, any of those things that they're experiencing in a small group atmosphere inside the schools. They share office space with us.
Wow.
And so
these are all things like that are need in general, like
unbelievable.
In our overall community, and the things that you hear with what's happening, like with youth in general. I feel like with everything that's going on with after the pandemic, and then just all the shifts and changes in social media. It's like those are incredible resources for anybody.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. You know, that's an important point, Ashley, when people talk about even the kids at Christ Haven, as our kids are your kids, right? And so anxiety, depression, social media pressure, everything that's happening and what kids are exposed to, it doesn't know socioeconomic boundaries, home life boundaries. It affects everybody. So understanding and knowing those resources is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the CEO, so like we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and small business and leadership. So, I mean, you absolutely have a leadership role with what you're doing. So how long have you been a CEO, whether it be for Christ Haven? Have you always been in this type of role?
Yeah, so I've been in nonprofit for a couple of decades, which seems weird to say because I don't think I'm old enough for that to be the case, but it is. I have been the CEO at Christ Haven for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was consulting, and so my role was to go in and do development and strategic planning for other executives in nonprofits. My background or my start was in United Way, and I truly believe that that's like the best training ground for anyone who wants to make an impact. And we're going to talk a little bit about influence, but I think that's why I've been on this journey of like thinking through who took time to be an influence on me early in my career. At United Way, there were some really powerful women that took the time to not just pump me up or teach me things, but like give me real criticism, harsh stuff, right? Like being a woman in leadership, especially at the age that I was then, I needed someone to give me some hard truth. I needed people.
Like we always still need that too, as we like grow and develop in what we're doing. Like I'm experiencing that now. Like I'm starting to like transition a little bit and like consider new things, and I'm just kind of like, like it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone, and you need someone to push you out of your comfort zone. It's in the discomfort where you grow the most.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, I would love to kind of dig deeper into that, because I feel like I'm even experiencing that myself. I always say, like with this podcast, I'm like, I listen to these back and I'm like, I always learn something. I'm like, I'm here to learn too.
I love it.
So talking about influence and impact is also like another big word for me, is like creating impact in the things that you do. So what's your view on influence? Like what do you perceive as influential?
So what I've really been thinking about a lot, and I even reached out to you about this recently. So many of our kids, and I work with teens and tweens all the time. I love this generation. I say all the time, like, we hear things, we see things, but I encourage people to like live with this generation
Yeah.
because, man, they're talented, they're resourceful, they're resilient, they're so much more talented and equipped than I feel like we were at this age.
Yes, I have a son that he's 17 going on 18.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I'm like, well, he grew up in an entrepreneur household, so maybe he's picked up some things obviously along the way, but even still there's things like he knows and just naturally is doing that I'm just like, okay.
Blown away, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of them talk about wanting to be an influencer, right?
Yeah.
My girls talk about this. I have 2 daughters, 11 and 12. So we see a lot of influencers. We follow a lot of influencers. And so it really got me thinking about that a lot. And I remember going to a Pink Impact several years ago, and one of the pastors saying, we've all been given authority over something.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, how do you take that authority? How do you use your platforms? And what do you want to use it for? And so I'm talking a lot about that with my own girls and with people that I have influence over. Like, we all have influence.
Right.
Right? It's how you use it. It's the influence that you have in the day-to-day. You have influence in a drive-thru. It drives my girls insane. But, like, if we're at McDonald's and the drive-thru worker has a pretty smile, I say it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's influence. That's impact on somebody's life. And
that's so true. I think nowadays when you think of influence, it's like the word influencer. So you think social media and you think, oh, well, if I just do this or if I have this many followers, then I'll be an influencer. And it's like exactly what you're saying. It's like, no, you can actually make an impact and influence people in just even your small circle.
Absolutely.
Just like they say, like, I don't know the exact, I'm really good with like coining phrases that I don't know the phrase of, but it's like the 5 people that you're surrounded by. It makes a difference in what are the things that you're surrounding yourself in, because what's influencing you,
right?
Never mind, what kind of influence you can have on other people, but what are you surrounding yourself with, and what's being influential in your life, whether it be music, whether it be the books you read, the people that you're around. There's so many aspects that a lot of people don't really think about as far as like the influencer part, because I think that word was slightly hijacked with just social media. Yes. So there's so many other ways.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot on campus with people that want to be influencers. Like, that's great. Be an influencer. Be a good influencer.
But what do you want to influence about? Right. Like, what is your platform, or what do you stand for? Yeah.
Because you can do TikToks and tell people what concealer to buy. I'm using one today that I heard about on TikTok. Like, nice. Or you can use that same platform to help make change in the child welfare system or whatever it is, right? Yeah. That's important to you. So I just feel so strongly that we all have a platform. We all have an opportunity. I also, as a believer, know that when we're trustworthy with little, we're giving more, right? And so I think that it's important to watch and be mindful of whom and how we're influencing every day. Yeah. And whom and how we're allowing to influence us every day, especially if you want that to grow, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. So what would be those things, like, in terms of determining, like, I always, for me personally, I'm always kind of thinking, like, my core pillars. And even when I'm doing it in business, it's like, what is your mission? Like, you think as a business, entrepreneur, I'm always like, okay, mission, vision statement, those kind of things. I never thought about looking at my own self and doing that type of work. But when I started kind of looking at everything I was doing and, like, thinking about my own personal brand, everybody has their own personal brand. If you view yourself from that perspective, whether you are showing up in leadership or for a job or for anything, really simply, how do you want to show up, and what are those things that are going to be your core things that you want to be known for and remembered for? So what are those for you as a personal brand?
Personal, that's so good. I've thought about this a lot lately because I know you probably do this as women in leadership. You get asked to lend your voice to lots of things. Yeah. Right? So I'm very careful about what I'm willing to lend my voice to, because I want it to be the things that are most important to me. Yeah. And I want it to be things that glorify God and things that really showcase my talent and who I am. So for me, it's family and it's legacy. And so that's my family of my girls and my husband, yes, but it's expanded so much where, every kid at Christ Haven, I joke with them because I'm like, you're in it with me now, and that means a whole lot, right? Like, you're one of mine, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's hard, but like, I fight for them. When I first came to Christ Haven, I was given the word roar. And that to me meant like I'm there to roar on behalf of these kids and these families and like until they find their voice and I'll use mine.
I love
Right.
that.
And so that's why I focus on that. It's what I pour everything into because that's what I've been positioned for uniquely.
Right.
And I feel like everybody has that, right? So like lean into it. Like you said, figure it out. What is it for you?
Yeah.
What's the thing that like gets that fire in your
That gets that
belly?
fire,
Yeah?
exactly, yeah, and kind of honing in on that. That definitely, I'm very much, because I'm a creative, so like I have that left and right brain always kind of flipping back and forth between business and creative, and it's very easy, I feel like, as a creative, and many creatives can relate to this, you just kind of like, follow your heart, your passions,
Yeah.
right? And so, for a long time, I thought that was the key. It was like, well, what are you passionate about? And like, that's what you pursue, and it's like, well, I mean, sometimes that can be fleeting, and when it gets really hard, like, what are those core values that you're never going to stray from? Or when it gets hard and you're like in survival mode, like, what are the things still that are going to always stick and be true to who you are, no matter what? Like, they're unwavering conditions.
Yeah.
And when I started to kind of do that work, I started to become like very clear, and it also helps steer the path of like what you say yes to, what you say no to. And, you know, it's with no hard feelings. You can do things confidently and be like, this is in alignment with who I am and this is right, and then this is not.
Right.
So it helps kind of steer that path a bit. But it did take me a bit to kind of like separate the two because my whole world was always business.
Sure.
And so I kind of had to develop myself after I developed something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And had to find myself in those pieces because I was a workaholic and I identified with my work, and that was it.
So easy to do.
Yeah. But then you realize like you are influencing in a way that you don't want to, that
So
you
good.
aren't in alignment with. And I think that was also an interesting turning point for me because how I was showing up in everything, whether it be in social media or how I was showing up for my business, there was this conceived notion of who I was, and then I almost felt like I had to show up like that all the time, and I was like, but this isn't me, this isn't who I am, and I had to get really clear on who I was before I could really show up as a better leader, as a better business owner, and just get very clear. So yeah, that work is so important.
So important.
And relatable to all aspects, you know,
Absolutely.
of life. So super cool. And so you mentioned that you have 2 daughters?
I do.
Teenagers?
Well,
Tweens?
tweens. 11 and 12, about to turn 13.
Girl, my daughter's gonna be 10, and I'm already like experiencing like we're in for a ride.
Yeah, especially when you see the little you in them.
Yes.
You know, you're like, oh, talk about influence.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
Like, what's good, what's bad?
Well, it's different too when you're their mother. Like, I feel like when you're the parent, they look at you differently, and it's like, do you know that, like, you are so lucky. But yeah, no, it's complete opposite when it's your kids.
That's
you
right.
don't know anything, and yeah, we're going through that right now. Although she is daddy's little girl, so
that's good.
I'll give her that. But she's very, very close to my husband.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I think that's why having girls in this stage is so interesting. And I'll tell you, it was when my girls were young, like probably 3 and 5 years old. Again, a woman in my life who had older kids, and I would joke a lot and say like, oh, 15 and 17 in my house, that's going to be crazy. And she's like, stop speaking that over them. Why don't you say 15 and 17, like everything is going to be amazing and they're going to be best friends and we're going to be in sync and like that's how life's going to stop speaking that over there. And I was like, oh gosh, I was just joking, but yeah.
Well, wow, I wasn't thinking that
good, right? But I look at them and you're getting me coming off of like a really intense weekend because I have one that is a competitive cheerleader and one that is a competitive dancer, and we just got done with NCAA cheer competition this weekend, which is like the largest cheer competition.
I was gonna say, okay,
in the
so
nation, and
Texas
it's intense.
alone is intense with all sports, all everything. Yeah. We're new to this life. We're in the soccer world, but
same.
It's definitely like a whole nother situation in Texas when it comes to when it comes to the competition stuff.
Yeah, I think that's why I look at these kids and I'm just so inspired by them because I'm like, to have the just the confidence, or at least the willingness to put yourself up on a big stage or out on a field up against the best of the best and like dig deep and work hard, and the discipline that these kids have that I did not have. Like, I feel like we're in good hands. I can't wait to see what they do, because I think that when stewarded correctly, all the things that they're learning and picking up on. And I volunteer at our church. We go to Milestone Church, which has Elevate on Wednesday nights, which is the youth group. And I say all the time, watching these kids, like, I want to be like them. They're just so brave and so bold and passionate about what they believe in. And so using that and learning from them and just continuing to be the adults in their lives that are like, man, chase that fire.
And then they're inspiring us back. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it comes full circle.
It does.
I love that. So going back to influence, who influenced you? What were those moments that were influential in your life that put you down the path that you ended up?
So, I mean, this sounds so cliche, but my parents were amazing parents. My mom and my dad both taught my brothers and I early on to be difference makers, to be the helpers, to be disciplined, to work hard at what we do. And still do that in our lives. You know, they're proud of us, but they expect a lot out of us. And I think my mom is and was so strong, such a strong woman, but such an encourager. Like, she was the person, not just for us, but I saw it in her community, showed up, right? Like, the neighbor's sick, she's making milkshakes. Like, that was just who she was and who she is. And I think I learned that early on. Like, that's who I wanted to be. I want to be a helper. So I always said my legacy, right? I want to be the person that hyped you up, that made you feel joyful, that encouraged who you were, that you didn't feel like you were in competition with. And then, you know, fast forward into the corporate world and what was happening and being at United Way and the women that I was exposed to. There was a woman who was the VP of Relations for Chesapeake, Julie Wilson, in Fort Worth, and I was so intimidated by her. Like,
isn't that always the way? Like, I feel like when I was younger, I would see these women in leadership, although back then there wasn't a lot of women that, like, for me, the whole world of, like, CEO and dreaming and thinking in that way almost felt very far out.
Absolutely.
Or far removed. Like, I didn't see that. And then as I got older, I started seeing more and more, and it was so intimidating.
It's intimidating, And then realizing, like, I went to something that she was speaking at, and she was like, if there's someone that you want to be your mentor, just ask.
Yes.
Just do it. And I was like, I could never. And 2 years later, she was my mentor, and she was the one who sat me down and talked to me about...
How did you end up connecting with her?
Boldly, I think, right? Like, listening to that and hearing her say things like, you know, question authority, raise your hand first. Like, just listening and thinking, like, this woman is someone that I want to be like.
Yeah.
And then she wound up serving on the United Way board, and because of the position I was in, I got to spend time with her, and she still is connected to me.
That works like that.
He's amazing, right?
I love that.
And I think that's it too, right? Like, looking back and seeing all these opportunities that I was given, and I think we're all given opportunities, but you've got to be willing to step into that.
Yes.
Right? And so when someone you look up to says, if you want a mentor, ask, like, that's kind of a wink. Right?
Like, start asking. That's when you go,
will you be a mentor?
Exactly.
But then being willing to take that, right? Because she was one of the ones that would pull me aside after, like, presentations and say, you have this catchphrase, don't use it. Like, don't do it. And I was
need that honesty.
That was mean, but I never used it again, and that was good for me. So and then it was just woman after woman that would stand up and teach me things about being a mom and a wife and a leader, but just like you said in the beginning, defining what that meant for me.
Yeah.
And recognizing that that looks different for everyone. And I think as women who work, sometimes we're looking side to side.
Yes.
Yeah? And you have to be like, man, what fills me up? What feels good for me? What's right for my family? And that might look different than Ashley, but doesn't mean it's not equal. Right? Or it may be your time to shine right now and mine in 10 years or vice versa. But
100%.
Doesn't matter. Just stay in your lane, stay focused on what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. That was something I kind of got tripped up sometimes when it came to social media and how I share in social media. I felt like I was just like sharing all the things that were happening that were going great. And then I was just like, I don't want to put this fictitious perception out here that there is a grind going on. Like, I was on the floor crying this morning, and this was not easy, but I got up. And so I got to this place of feeling like I wanted to share the authentic process without not being fully out there, and at the same time, like, being vulnerable is kind of where the magic happens, right? And that's where you really do connect with people. And then when you start to be transparent in your process and authentic, not only do people learn, but then they also realize, like, there is these ups and downs and these different moments that kind of come about, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Like, that's my biggest thing to tell anyone. It's like, it's not going to look perfect. You're going to get there, but you're also going to take 10 steps back in between. Like, everybody's journey is different, but, like, just keep showing up. And so it's going to be hard. And girl, I cried this morning too. And, like, keep showing up. Yeah. And that's, like, the biggest message for me, where I got a little bit tripped up with social media, where it's just like, I didn't want it to look unattainable. And at the same time, like, what's the fine line of not fully being so vulnerable that you're just like,
totally exposed.
Exactly, which is always hard. But there was this one phrase that just, like, really resonated with me, and it's a part of the eWomen Network. And I got connected with some women in there recently. And their whole motto is, like, we lift as you climb.
Yes.
And so, like, you know what? We're all climbing.
Yeah.
We're all climbing in the process. And when you lift along the way, you get that much needed support along the way. And then at the same time, you kind of just, people that are still in it, you can reach to, or they can reach back.
Absolutely.
And if anything, that's my biggest message, is, like, I never want to feel so inaccessible to people that my life might look whatever way on social media, but I still want to, you know, if you're struggling or if you have a question or something, be that person to always, like, reach back, and, you know, they can reach out.
Absolutely. You know, it's, I tell my girls, social media is everybody's highlight reel.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not the everything. It's not what people think.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh and say, like, to get that picture in front of the Grand Canyon of you guys smiling, what did I say? Right? Like, I was like, just act like you like right? Like,
exactly.
But I don't post that one.
No,
it's not like real.
Yeah.
It is such a fine line of, like, complete vulnerability.
Yeah.
And good stuff too. And I feel like it's okay to celebrate the good, right? And I try to encourage that in the young people that I have influence over, of, like, man, when your friend is doing good, stand up and be the loudest one cheering. Like, let her have that, let him have that moment, because you never know what someone's been walking through. You never know that behind the scenes hard work that it took to get there. And it feels really good when you just let yourself be happy with others and not, fight against that competition.
Yeah.
Which is really hilarious to hear me say, because my Strength Finders profile competition is my number one, which is good and bad.
I'm right there with you. I'm very competitive
too.
But I will say, like, I think what I have found over the years is, back in the day, I was very competitive to anyone else around me.
Yes.
And then when I switched that, and I started being competitive with myself.
Good, yes.
It changed the full dynamic of everything for me, in business, in life, in everything. And I didn't have, like, there's like a chip on your shoulder when you are looking outside of yourself and thinking everybody's against you or whatever that looks like. But there's definitely, when you kind of put that towards yourself and, like, how can I improve from what I did, or this experience didn't go so well, what can I learn from it?
Right.
How can I improve the next time so this experience doesn't happen again? Or, going back to business, because that's always where my brain can go, is just like, okay, what were my numbers last year? How can I improve upon that? Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? So, yeah, competing with yourself, you're always going to win.
That's right. Because you can control what you can control.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But you can't control anybody around you.
No, yeah.
I've tried. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's like perception is also reality too.
Yes.
So, and everybody's looking from their own lens of perception. And
so true.
that's okay. I had to like get good with that too, and just like everyone's life experiences. And I'm sure like with what you do and the work that you do and the children and the different backgrounds and experiences, it's like you don't realize people's circumstances or what they are either currently trying to overcome or have overcome. Yeah. And what I've learned, if I learned nothing else starting this podcast, this is our like 23rd episode.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's awesome.
I know. And I'm so excited because I'm like, I did it. I'm consistent too. So even when it's hard, I'm like, you just got to show up.
That's right.
But even just like reflecting on some of the stories of just the different women that have even come on here, and just over the years, like everyone, everyone's got a story. Yes. And everybody has something that their own challenge, their own thing that they had to overcome, but that also is part of the lens of how they perceive and experience things.
Yep.
And so it's not always something you did, it's just maybe something they're experiencing and going through and, whatever. And that's why you can't always attach to the things outside of you.
I mean, perspective is everything.
Oh, 100%.
And I will say, being at Christ Haven, that perspective is a gift. It's been a gift for me. It's been a gift for my girls. It's been a gift to anyone that I bring on the campus. I mean, I'll be honest, when I first started, I thought, how could someone voluntarily give up their child, right? Like, that was something I really had to, like, think through and process and meet with grace.
Yeah.
And then I started really thinking about it, and I thought, that's the bravest thing a mom could do, or a dad, or a grandma, or whomever, like, to be self-sacrificing enough to truly put the well-being of your child ahead of everything else, ahead of pride, ahead of shame, ahead of guilt, ahead of any of those emotions that it attach, and be like, no, this, for this season of life, is best for my kid, it's best for my family, and trusting others to be a part of that. Yeah. Man, that's huge. That's huge. I am inspired by that, and I admire them, and I wonder if I was in the same situation, if I would be that brave, and I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
And so I do think perspective and lens changes everything.
Yeah.
It really does.
Definitely. That's amazing. And then so are there like programs, just like out of curiosity with that process, are there programs that like maybe the parents go through, or, do they get also help and resources? Is that something you connect them with as well?
Yeah, so this is new to us, but one of my favorite things that we're doing, it's our Family Resource Center. We started it 3 years ago, and it was out of a heart for family. Here's what I know. Our kids, we can give them, provide them, nurture them, do everything that we possibly can while they're at Christ Haven, but they want their family.
Yeah.
Right? And I want them to have their family. And I dream of a world where there is no place like Christ Haven, because families are wholly healed together.
Sure.
That's what I want. So how do we get on the side of that? How do we start like looking for that solution? So we started our Family Resource Center 3 years ago, and it's to meet families before and after placement of a child. Okay. So a lot of what we're seeing in Texas is poverty-related neglect. And so they can't afford their children. They can't feed them. They don't, they're homeless, whatever that looks like. And I want to fix that, right? Like, you want to be a mom, you just can't provide groceries. I can do that,
right,
and keep your family together. So our Family Resource Center provides meal boxes to families, free counseling services, parenting webinars, and then referrals to the moms, dads, caregivers for whatever it is that they're walking through, whether it's joblessness, homelessness, financial insecurity, try to finish their education, whatever that looks like.
I love that.
We're walking through it. I do too. I really do.
Really going to like the root, right? It's like, how do you correct? You could keep putting a Band-Aid, but then at the same time, like if you can go to the root of it, and then if you can reunite the family sooner, you mitigate, long-term potential trauma of the child not having their family, their own personal family. So.
And being able to wrap around them at the end too, right? Of like, we're in this together. And we recently had a family reunify this summer. It was just such an awesome experience. But the mom said to me, she pulled me aside and she's like, listen, Cassie, I was a little girl praying for a village. And she's like, God gave me the answer to my prayer a generation later with my kids, and you're my village. And she's like, it's so humbling to see that answer and to watch that, and I had to fully abandon myself of what I thought I was supposed to do and allow this village in. And she reunified with her kids, and she sends us pictures at Christmas and school, and we're
That's
still a part of their family. And it's,
And you're like breaking like generational curses.
Come on,
Like
yes.
that is, I mean, if
Yeah.
you can't, if nothing else, like to be a witness to that and
Yes.
to know just the impact in that way is insane, because
Yeah.
it's just now you just changed the trajectory of a family,
well, and
like as a whole.
And even getting to know her and many of the families that we get to know, there was so much that she was believing about herself that wasn't true.
Right.
Right? And so to be in a position of influence, to sit in front of her and say, that's not true. And I ask myself a lot, like, if my mother was listening right now, would she be proud? Right? Like, if she saw this, would I get the Cassie D? Or would she be proud of what I'm saying? And now as a mom with my girls, like, am I being who I want them to be? Our kids are listening.
Oh gosh, yes.
They're watching.
Yeah.
And I see this a lot on social media play out where I'm like, man, if the adults would act better, the kids sure would, right?
100%.
And I feel like we have a responsibility to be the grown-ups right now and to use our influence in a way that is good and that is empowering. And women in particular, I want us to just get out of each other's way.
Oh, girl.
Right?
I gotta say, when I feel it, I gotta snap. Yes. Yes.
I have, even driving over here, I have this group of women that I met through my girls' activities that have just become my hype squad, right? And I'm like driving over here and they're like, you've got this, you're amazing, you'll crush it. And I'm like, how lucky am I that I'm just driving to do a fun podcast with Ashley and I don't even feel stressed out about it. And they're already surrounding me with like affirmation. And I want to be that. And so I would say lasting stuff, like, be that for other people and find it for yourself. And I also tell my girls all the time, like, choose the people who choose you back.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Like, if they're not choosing you back, unless the Lord has like really prompted your heart that you're supposed to be in this person's life, choose the ones who choose you back, and you know the difference. You feel the difference, right? Like, you've had friends that you are like working so hard to be friends with that person, and then you have the ones that you're just like, this is family.
But you know what's so funny is that you do always, like, I feel like sometimes there's a tendency that happens where it's like the ones that you just know are always going to be there. It's not that you take advantage, but you just kind of like, you're like, okay, they'll always be there.
Yes.
They'll always be there. So you don't always nurture those relationships the same way. I had a conversation with a friend about that, and like, that can happen over time or whatever. People change, things transition, and then but we always make a point to kind of like connect again and just check back in, and because it's so easy, especially when you're like perceived as like a strong woman. She's got this, like, you know, but at the same time, you typically, most women that are strong had to overcome some things.
Check on your strong friends.
Check on your strong friends. Make sure they're all right, because nobody's usually checking on her. And it's so true. So we forget to nurture those relationships. And so I love that. Choose the people that choose you back. That's powerful. I like that. And we get in our own way sometimes. And I think a piggyback on top of that is, not getting in our own way, but on top of that, like, a lot of times it's really, again, going back to our perceived, like, if you are getting in your own way, what is going on there? Like, what is something within your own self that you have to, like, come and check? And my relationship, actually, as a believer, is somewhat new in that relationship of going to him. And I've learned to just do that and check in. And so having that, like, comfortability, can't say the word, of just checking within yourself, and just like, if you are feeling some type of way, like what's coming up for you and why. And a lot of times it's not necessarily what they're doing, it's what you're attaching to personally. So
because you can't control others, right?
You can't control yourself. You can only control yourself.
I was careful what you ask for, right? But like, often I say, okay, Lord, like, expose in me what needs to be exposed. And I'm like, oh man, I really want to work on that.
Today.
Not that one. That was the one we were gonna hide.
Yes.
But yeah,
You don't get to choose.
check in on yourself.
Yeah.
And figure out what's stopping you, and surround yourself with women, men, people, influences that will check you too.
Yeah.
And say, like, that's not true to who Ashley is. That's not true to who Cassie is.
I love that.
That's important. That's your influence.
That is your influence, and everyone around you. And then check in on the things you're listening to.
That's right.
And like this podcast, keep listening to this podcast so we can keep pouring into you. And that's why I started doing this to begin with, because it was just like I wanted to have more conversation beyond just a post on social media, right? And just bring different conversations, different backgrounds. I think the coolest thing is there's so many different experiences and different backgrounds. And when you hear that, there's like a sense of like you'll find relatability somewhere in something. And connection is so important, to stay connected. And check on your strong friends.
Yes. Yeah. Today.
Here's your reminder.
Check
on your strong friends. I'm looking at the camera. I don't even know if the camera's on now. But all right, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me and kicking it. Is there any last details about maybe Christ Haven? How can we learn more about Christ Haven and the work that you're doing over there?
Always check out our website, christhaven.org. There's tons of stuff on there. If you want to use your influence for good, we always need mentors, people that want to come and pour in. And I always say that if like whatever your gift is, whatever your prompting is, I promise I need it. I promise our kids need it. So come check us out at christhaven.org and get plugged in with us and our kids. And I promise you, it will be a blessing and a gift to you for sure.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you guys for listening. It's always a pleasure to come and bring these stories and bring these different women from different walks of life and different experiences so we could all learn from each other, because as we climb, we lift, and that is what it's all about. So again, thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned till next time. Bye.